A well-rehearsed process. My name is Lewis Potter. My friends call me Lou, but I usually answer to any name. I'm married to Ruby. We have been married for 4 years, but we have no children, for the simple reason that we are both a bit selfish and don't want to give up our freedom. Perhaps we will have children, but I think it will happen when we are well into our 30s. Both came from poor families, lived only a few streets away from each other, but didn't meet until we were 18 when we were at a recruitment event held by our college. Ruby did well at college and qualified as an accountant and credit controller. I, on the other hand, studied very badly and didn't even graduate from college. I have a work ethic and a knack for running a business. At 15, I started working as a janitor at local stores and small offices. By the time I was 18, I had 30 employees and contracts with a number of large businesses in our town. Ruby was looking for work, and I was looking for employees. When Ruby approached my table at the event, we got to talking. She handed me her resume and looked me over and said, "I don't need a cleaning job, but you might be interested in my phone number." I called her before she even sat down at the next table and invited her to dinner the next night. 4 years later, we were married. As a result of this event, Ruby found a job. She began working in the purchasing department of an engineering firm, starting at the bottom of the ladder. 8 years later, she became head of the purchasing department as well as the credit control department. Needless to say, we had a very dink lifestyle, dual income, and no kids. My business is thriving, and I now have the largest office and store cleaning company in town, after buying out 2 of my competitors. As with most offices, the cleaning lady and security guard are the first to notice strange things, and everyone is happy to talk about them. About 4 months ago, I was working in an office when my receptionist came in and said there was a man in the reception area who wanted to talk to me. She handed me his business card. It said, "Ross Evans is a private investigator." I told her to bring him to me. When he entered the office, I stood up, extended my hand, and asked, "Mr. Evans, what can I do for you?" We shook hands and I motioned for him to sit down. Smiling, he sat down. "First of all, can I have some coffee?" I hadn't had it all day and I'd kill for it. I knew exactly how he felt. Caffeine seems to be the drug of choice for most business owners. My receptionist didn't have to be asked twice. She poured 2 mugs of coffee from the machine in my office, and the milk and sugar were already on the table. Neither of us touched them. After the small talk, I got down to business. "So, Mr. Evans, what can I do for you?" Without wasting any time, he began, "Please, call me Ross. As you may have gathered from my business card, I'm a private investigator, and I work for a client who suspects that his wife is either having an affair or about to have one. Our client works as an accountant for Stevens Piping. One of their largest suppliers is AM Metals. AM Metals has a new salesman named Alistair Clark. Mr. Clark is a bit of a gigolo who likes married women. Mr. Clark has been courting my client's wife for quite some time. They have long lunches, he sends her flowers, texts her at night, pretty much everything as it should be. As far as we can tell, he's trying to get her to go on a sleepover with him. We have enough information now, but final details need to be worked out." I was intrigued. The whole secret agent thing is very amusing, but the name AM Metals is very familiar to me. Ruby's employers also get their raw materials from them, and this Clark sounds like someone I'd like to keep her away from. I looked up and saw Ross looking at me. He was obviously waiting for a question, so I asked, "I get it, but what can I do to help?" He smiled. "I was hoping you'd ask that. It's very simple. He leaves flowers, notes, and other documents on her desk. She reads them and then throws them in the trash. Your employees take out the trash. They can take anything personal from him and give it to us. We checked this with our legal team. Anything personal can be taken away without any legal problems. We also talked to her employer. Here's the authorization to get the information. By cooperating with our investigation, they are avoiding any legal issues with violating the fraternization clause in her contract that may come their way. If you want to know why they signed it, here is the CEO's business card. Please call him to confirm his approval." I already had the CEO's number in my phone. Without saying a word to Ross, I picked up the phone and dialed his number. He answered on the second ring, and without even saying hello, he started right away. "Lou, I believe Ross Evans is sitting in your office. I confirm that I give you carte blanche to receive and give him or his employees any information not related to our company. My attorney is currently drafting a letter to that effect, which we will email to you. I have to go now as my attorney is in my office right now, but call me back if you need anything else. He hung up the phone. I didn't have time to utter a word. Obviously, they wanted to get this matter over with as quickly as possible. Ross smiled at me. I only nodded and added, "He confirmed what you said. Give me all the information and we'll start emptying her basket into a separate bag. I'll sort it here and you can pick up what's set aside every morning at 11. Does that work for you?" Ross confirmed. "That's perfect." I called in the appropriate team leader and Ross instructed us on what to look for. Early lunches, late lunches, flowers, notes, etc. We worked with Ross for about 6 weeks. At the end of that time frame, he reported that the investigation was over. One of my coworkers noticed that a female coworker had not returned after lunch. We called Ross and informed him of this. He followed them back to the motel. The marriage ended in divorce. Work and family life went on as usual. Until one day, Ruby came home a little agitated. I tried to find out what was wrong, but she wouldn't tell me. About a week later, Donna, one of my long-term employees, came into my office. This is a good employee who had worked with me almost from the beginning. I considered her my friend. She is 25 years older than me and treats me like a son. She sat down in the chair and I realized something was wrong. Then she started, "Yeah, do you remember a couple months ago I worked in an office where we were following that woman?" I was intrigued. How could I have forgotten that? Yes, it was a very interesting time. "Why do you bring that up?" I asked, raising an eyebrow to show that I was certainly intrigued. "Well," she blurted out, "as you know, I now work in the office where your wife works, and the very guy we were watching now comes into her office. I noticed a big bouquet of flowers and she went to lunch with it. Here's the card formerly in the flowers." She held out the card to me and I read it. "Dear Ruby, thank you for helping me renew my contract with your company. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. I hope you'll accept my invitation to lunch so we can have a proper chat. Love, Alistair." My blood ran cold. The language in the card immediately suggested that this was not my first face-to-face interaction, and it was certainly getting close, if not already close, to failing the spouse test. I knew from Ross that this guy was taking his time, but was very successful in hitting on married women, and my wife was in the crosshairs. I thanked Donna and asked her to keep an eye on everything else and give me a summary every morning. If there were any other notes, I asked her to bring them to me. As soon as she left, I picked up the phone and dialed Ross's number. He answered on the third ring. "Hi, Lou. What can I do for you?" I immediately started the conversation by telling him what Donna had told me. One of my employees had just come to see me. She was the one who cleared the desk every night on that case you were working. After the investigation was over, we reassigned her to another position, and now she works in the office where my wife works. Donna just told me that the same Mr. Clark is putting pressure on my wife, and she now goes to lunch with him. I have a card of flowers he sent, and it says he has ambitions for her. Ross took a deep breath. "We're still investigating Mr. Clark. In fact, you are the third husband so far, the only difference being that the other two didn't know who he was to begin with. The other husbands have agreed to split the cost. Would you like to join them?" "Sure. What do I have to do?" I replied. Ross said he was meeting the husbands at 2 o'clock and asked, "Could you come to my office to meet, do the necessary paperwork, and share information?" I agreed to come over. At exactly 1:55 p.m., I was sitting in Ross's office. In the room were Dan McWilliams and Johnny Ashley, the two husbands. Also with us were Ross and one of his employees, Mike Pearson, who was doing data collection on the case. Ross began the meeting by saying, "Gentlemen, we are gathered here because you three have the same problem. Dan and Johnny, this is Lou. Lou would like to join your investigation. If you agree, we'll register him as a client and draw up the paperwork to allow us to share information." Both looked at me, then at Ross, and replied, "Yes, that would be fine." The paperwork took about 15 minutes, after which I used my personal credit card to issue a $5,000 cash advance, knowing that Ruby would never get a statement for that payment. Ross began, "So Dan, Johnny, and Lou, our common problem's name is Mr. Alistair Clark. For your information, Lou, Dan's wife works for AM Metal with Mr. Clark, and Johnny's wife works for the school board that buys medals for use in technology classes in the schools. Mr. Clark has a well-rehearsed process. He stalks a woman at work with flowers, messages, lunch, and usually tries to get her to go to a motel after lunch. With women who have children, he does the same thing and usually tries to get them into bed several times. With childless women, he tries to get them to ask their husband for a free pass. He seems to take real pleasure in letting the husbands know that he has succeeded in winning their wives' favor. He tries to take them away for the weekend and then dumps them. We know he's been responsible for at least 5 divorces in the neighborhood in the last year. We traced it back to his previous place of employment, which was in Dallas. In fact, his employer fired him when he was class action sued by 7 husbands for alienation of affection within 3 years. The guy is a nasty type. He took another sip of coffee and continued. Lou, do you do any cleaning work at AM Metals or the school district office? Last time we checked, if you dump the contents of your trash can into a bag, you can use the trash however you want as long as it's not protected by a confidentiality clause in your contract with the company you're cleaning for. I shook my head. No, we don't do either of those things, was my response. Ross nodded. Too bad, but keep picking up trash from your wife's basket. And who pays your wife's cell phone bill? My business, I replied. Ross smiled and asked, what kind of phone does she have? Samsung, I stated for the record. Good. Please fill out this document here, giving us permission to collect data from her phone. He then handed me a piece of paper with a QR code on it and continued, scan this code from her phone. It will take you to our server. Use the username and password at the bottom, and a program will be downloaded on her phone that will start transmitting all her calls, messages, emails, and even WhatsApp messages to us. We know that he always uses his cell phone so that when he calls the home phone by mistake, her husband doesn't answer. The meeting ended with Dan, Johnny, and I exchanging phone numbers, and we created a group on WhatsApp that included Ross and Mike. This way, we could quickly exchange information. When I got home, Ruby was already there. She was again a little distracted, holding her phone close to her and not really listening to what I was saying. She had gone out to feed the dog, and I noticed that she had her phone with her, which she had never done before. When I asked what was wrong, she said she had had a weird day and was feeling really tired. She went to bed at 9:30, 2 hours earlier than usual. I stayed up until our usual time and then went looking for her phone. It wasn't in its usual place, so I went upstairs to our bedroom. There was a phone cable lying next to the bed, and when I looked closely, I found it was under the pillow. There was no way to get it out without waking her up, so I went back to sleep. It didn't look good, and I had a hard time sleeping. I was lucky. In the middle of the night, she got up and left the room. I quickly grabbed her phone, scanned the QR code, entered the data, and put the phone back until she returned. The next morning, she just wandered around the house until she left for work. If I didn't talk to her, she wouldn't tell me anything. At about 11:30 in the morning, Mike called from Ross's office. They had finished analyzing the first data dump, and he began his explanation. She had opened a new email address that apparently only he uses. It's very convenient for us, by the way. We didn't know how he contacted women, so we're now working on hacking his email. Emails from him are actually a very compulsive sales pitch. He got her to talk about how you were her first and only, and talked about how she needed to learn new things to keep things fresh and interesting in the marriage. She gave him very personal information about your life, and he absorbed it like a sponge and used it to his advantage. He has hinted that a new sexual experience will diversify your life, and must have already suggested spending the weekend together when they had lunch yesterday. Now he's backing it up with phrases like, "It's just love," and "if he really loved you." I hate to say it, but he is acting fast and furious in his attack. I talked about her behavior last night and then added, "She must have been thinking about it all the time last night and this morning. Didn't even notice me last night and this morning." I then asked, "Are they still communicating now, or do they have lunch plans?" Mike looked at the messages and read the last one. "This just came in. Let's have lunch tomorrow at the beach club and make a plan. Lou loves you, and if you tell him, it won't be cheating and he can't deny you a free pass. She just said okay." Mike and I finished talking, and I sat back down, wondering what I should do. Just talking to her wasn't going to work. He'll keep working on her and resort to another method, taking her to a motel for half a day. No, I have to end this or end our marriage. I called Ross, and after a few pleasantries said, "It sounds like he's heading straight for Ruby and wants to rub my nose in it. Even if I nail it, he's going to try to take her to a motel. I need a plan to kill this. I think I need to file divorce papers. I also think I need a plan B, but I haven't figured out what it is yet. What do you think?" Ross was quiet for a few moments, then replied, "It's always good to have a plan B, but if that one doesn't work, he won't stop. I know this man and his ego won't let her slip away, so unless you can forgive her, divorce will become a reality at some point. I will prepare a packet of papers for your attorney, or I can recommend my own." "I have my own, thank you." "He drew up a business contract, and that one is protected by a trust in a divorce," I replied. I called my lawyer and asked for a meeting. We agreed to meet the next day at 9:30 in the morning. When I entered the attorney's office, he looked at me. "Oh, shit. Who cheated?" I smiled. He was reading me like a book. I sat down, took the cup of coffee placed in front of me by his secretary, and began. "I'm about to be cheated on by Ruby. A salesman came to her work and had a crush on her. She fell for it, and now I don't see any other way out. I'm working on Plan B to stop it, but Plan A is divorce if she cheats on me." We spent the next hour discussing our options. I wanted a clean divorce. The business is protected by the agreement, and everything else is 50-50. No children, so no alimony would be required. The house would be sold. I wasn't going to sue Clark, his employer, or her employer. Too expensive and no chance of success. We shook hands. I paid my fee and left. He would draw up all the documents and keep them on file so that I could refer to him if necessary. As the week went on, Ruby's spirits rose and fell. One night she couldn't get enough of time with me and affection. The next night she didn't even notice my presence. On Friday afternoon, Donna called to say that Ruby had received a large bouquet of flowers. The card said, "I've made up my mind, how about you?" Sending a message to the WhatsApp group, I noticed Ross had posted a message. "Dan, he's invited her to lunch at the Holiday Inn. We know he has a room, but the matter has not been resolved yet. Get here right now, and we can stop this matter." I was happy for Dan. Now he would get his way one way or another. I hoped that the moment was near for me, too. I was so distracted that new things were falling out of my hands. I sent a message to the group, telling Mike about the flowers and what the card said. He replied, "I'll check her email now, nothing yet this morning." About 5 minutes later, Mike called and without hanging up said, "Look in your WhatsApp." I opened the app and there was the document Mike had sent me. I opened it. It was a confirmation of a room reservation at a hotel located on a lake about 30 miles from the city. The room was a double for the coming Friday and Saturday, and the reservation had 2 names on it, Clark and Ruby. I went back to the phone and said, "This looks like a bad case." Mike sighed. "Yeah, and the email is even worse. It's a cheater's manual telling Ruby how and what to say. I'll send it to you." I thanked him, and we hung up. The email arrived, and I read it. It was several emails in a row with the subject line, "Weekend." It all started about 2 weeks ago when he sent her a link to a hotel, the same hotel he ended up booking. In the email, he talked about how he wanted to take her to the hotel to pamper her and suggested other activities. The next letters asked what she thought about it, and why I wouldn't let her do something that would make her happy. In the last letter, he wrote about the booking and gave a list of things to say and do to get me to agree. It was a guide to preparing for cheating. It included cooking a delicious dinner the following Thursday, lots of love throughout the week, then explaining that with him it would only be now, but he would teach her a lot. I had much more experience before we were married, and ending with, "If you really love me." Her answer was evasive, but left the choice up to her. I'm not sure Lou would buy it. Let me think about it. The weekend passed in hard work. I couldn't say anything about what I know, but she was incredibly sweet. We made love Friday night, Saturday morning, and Saturday night. On Sunday, she got me into bed in the middle of the afternoon, another time on Sunday night, and on Monday morning, we had a quick love-making session. At 3 o'clock Monday afternoon, Ross called with an update on the email. The news was bad. She just texted Clark and said she's going to offer it to you Thursday night. If you say no, she won't do it, but if you say yes, she will. He replied, "If he gets nervous, remember that forgiveness is easier to ask for than permission." I thanked Ross and asked him to prepare a folder with everything we have. I asked if they had any pictures of them being intimate. I heard the rustling of papers and he replied, "We have a picture of them kissing. Not a passionate kiss, but a kiss nonetheless." I said, "Okay, please put everything in a folder and have that picture as the cover page on the outside. Also send the whole folder to my lawyer." He confirmed that he would send it. The next call I made was to my attorney, warned him and informed him that he would have the folder later. We arranged to have it delivered at the hotel on Saturday morning during breakfast. Nothing causes indigestion like a divorce filing. Monday night she wanted love, but I declined, saying I had an important proposal to finish. I sat in my office and took care of business. I didn't get to bed until 2 in the morning. She was already fast asleep. I slept very soundly too, got up at 6 in the morning and went to work before she could attack me. The folder was delivered by courier. I sat in the office and read it. The seduction technique was apparent. It was unpredictable but clearly effective. Ross gave details, but no names, of at least 7 marriages he had ruined in the last 18 months. The folder also contained a note from Dan. He showed up at the Holiday Inn and joined his wife and Clark at the table. His wife became frightened and ran out of the restaurant in tears. Ross had to intervene to prevent Dan from attacking Clark, and then he drove him home. He and his wife began counseling to see if they could save their marriage, as they have 3 children under the age of 8. This temporary measure would at least give them time, and his wife had quit her job, so Clark was out of the picture. As I was reading, my secretary walked into the room. She looked right at me and didn't say anything. Before I realized what was happening, I was crying my eyes out and telling her the whole story. When I finished, she asked, "What are you going to do about it?" For the first time ever, I smiled. I don't know why, but she was no longer my secretary, but a friend who wants to help. I also noticed something else I hadn't noticed before. She's a very sexy person. She smiled back at me. I said, "Plan A is divorce. If she leaves with him on Friday, she will be served with a divorce petition at the hotel on Saturday morning. No second chances. I've been trying to come up with a plan B to get her to stop, but my mind is so foggy I can't think of anything." My secretary, whom I always addressed as Miss Atwood, but who called herself Kathy, smiled slyly and quoted, "What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Why don't you have your own weekend getaway with the girl of your dreams?" Unable to resist, I smiled back and asked, "And who should I arrange it with?" I knew the answer before she even said it, but she answered nonetheless. "With me, of course. Your faithful secretary has had enough of you, and you just have to put it out of your mind. It will only be love and nothing to do with your marriage. Take this letter as a template and take it out on her before she takes it out on you." It was brilliant in its simplicity, but would also force Ruby to face her own cheating. On Tuesday night, I slept with my wife, with no love at all. It was a hard thing to do. Wednesday morning, neither of us were ready for a quick lovemaking. Wednesday evening, things were a little less violent, but only a little. Thursday morning, Ruby woke up as I was leaving the house. She yelled something about dinner, but I purposely ignored her. Around noon on Thursday, I got a call from Ross saying that Ruby had texted Clark that she was making a big dinner for me and would let him know how the conversation went. I wanted to preempt her, so I went to the store and bought chicken, potatoes, and vegetables, all of which I was going to bake, and a bottle of her favorite white wine. At 2:30, I was home, and 2 hours later everything was ready and in the oven. Just as I was putting the potatoes to bake, Ruby walked in the door with bags of shopping. She looked at me in confusion and asked, "What are you doing?" I smiled broadly. "Just making dinner for my lovely wife. I wanted to do something special and then we need to talk." I saw a strange expression on her face. Clearly surprised, she replied, "Oh, I was the one who was going to cook dinner, but after we finish we can talk because I have something important to say, so it's going to be a long evening." I replied, "Sure," but turned away with a smile on my face. I had already made a significant dent in her plans. Dinner passed in suspense. I carried the conversation, and every time she even came close to turning the conversation to me, I steered it away by saying, "Let's enjoy this nice meal, and then I'll tell you my big news." When we finished, I spoke first. "Bring your wine to the kitchen, and there we can talk." She followed me. I had earlier put the folder with the letter containing the list of her excuses on the kitchen table where I usually sat, covering that one with a couple of magazines. Now I put the magazines away so she could see that I had printed something, but nothing else. I said, "Ruby, you know I love you and that I would never do anything to hurt you, but we were married very young and I had so little experience. For the past few months, my new secretary, Miss Atwood, or Kathy as she likes to be called, has been talking to me. She has so many stories to tell, I could listen to her for hours. Now I need to get her out of my head before we settle down for the rest of our lives. I've booked a hotel with her for the weekend. It'll just be love and some of my time there, to blow off steam and learn new tricks that you and I will play with in bed later. It has nothing to do with my love for you, and it won't affect our marriage. I'm telling you this so you know ahead of time, and this way it won't be my cheating. I know you love me so much that you will let me have this one weekend away from our marriage, and it will not affect our marriage in any way." Ruby's face turned crimson. I thought she was about to explode. Then she declared, "Over my dead body. And I want that fool to quit Monday morning, or we'll break up." This relieved the tension I was in, and I burst into the biggest laugh imaginable, saying, "You should see your face. It's a picture. It couldn't be better." At that moment, it hit her. Everything I was saying she was going to say to me. I closed the folder and held it out to her. On the front was a picture of her kissing Clark. Her face practically turned gray as she whispered, "You knew. And you played a trick on me." I smiled. "Yes, I did. I think your reaction would have been exactly the same as mine if you'd caught me off guard. By the way, unlike you, I didn't book a hotel for us, and unlike you, Miss Atwood and I never had lunch, never kissed, and never discussed our personal or sex lives. My story is a figment of my imagination. Yours is very real." As I said this, she flipped through the folder. The extent of my knowledge was a revelation to her. Dates, times, photos of dinners and intimate moments, copies of her secret emails, transcripts of phone conversations. It was all there. She resented it. "You spied on me. You invaded my privacy. How could you do that?" I was calm. That was it. Time to act or not. I love this woman, but she needs to know there is a limit, and she's standing right at the line. "You got yourself a boyfriend, started an emotional affair, planned to turn it into a physical affair, humiliating me and destroying our marriage in the process. And yet you're mad at me for trying to stop it? I thought we could recover from this, but maybe I'm wrong," I replied, more with sadness than anger. "What do you mean, humiliate you and ruin our marriage? I didn't plan any of that. It was something outside of our marriage." Obviously, she started quoting the cheating manual. "Why would that affect us?" "Listen to what you said," I repeated her words, "and then think about what you said to me in response to the same thing. You said, 'over my dead body.' So why is it okay for you to cheat, but not for me?" She took a deep breath as if about to say something. I raised my hand and added, "There's no such thing as a free pass. If you go with Clark, it's cheating. If you tell me beforehand, it won't change the situation." She lowered her eyes, then mouthed, "I can't process this right now. I need to be alone." With that last statement, she got up and ran upstairs. I noticed that she took the folder with her. I heard the bedroom door close and the lock click. I cleaned up the house and sat down at the table. Ross also gave me a tablet computer that I could use to access the server that displayed all of Ruby's phone activity. I sat down and opened it. She was texting with Clark. I read her first letter with interest. "Oh my God, Alistair. He knows. He's been following us, and he has copies of the messages. When I got home tonight, he made dinner and told me the very thing I was about to say. I exploded at the thought that he could be with another woman. Then he showed me a folder. In it was everything, including the reservation. What am I supposed to do?" Clark clearly didn't see that as a problem. He answered after a few minutes. "Just tell him that everything is booked and that you have to do it. Be sure to emphasize your love for him and ask if he loves you as much as you love him. He'll understand that you need one weekend away. You could almost hear the desperation in what he wrote. I tried to do it, but he said it would humiliate him and ruin our marriage. That even if I asked him, it would still be cheating. I can't do it. I have to end it. A weekend away would be fun, but I can't risk him ruining the rest of our lives with Lou. Now it was him who was desperate. All his efforts and money had been wasted, and he decided to play it big. Do you think he'll divorce you? No. He'll never find a woman like you. Tell you what, pack a bag and bring it to work. See what he does, and if it doesn't work out, let's go away for the weekend, and on Sunday you can apologize to him. I know your husband's type, and there's no way he'd want to lose you. It was utter nonsense, but unfortunately, she fell for it. The last letter in the chain was like this. Okay, but if it looks anything like he's going to leave me, I won't do it. I'll see you tomorrow. She was starting to make sense, and he certainly knew how to reassure her. I put the tablet away and sat down to watch TV. I didn't really watch because my thoughts were preoccupied with all of this. I had scheduled the divorce filing for Saturday. Maybe I should reschedule it for later, but I knew that once I filed, I wouldn't back down. No, I needed to do something else tomorrow that would show her I was serious. I called my lawyer and told him everything in detail. Hey, I just hit her with this, and Clark let her know that I'll forgive her. She's going to pack a bag and see what I do. I don't want to file for divorce until they've slept together. But is there anything we can do to show her how serious this is? My lawyer was savvy. He replied, we can hand her a pre-suit letter. All we'll do is outline that you know she's going away for the weekend for an illicit love affair, and that if she continues the affair, we'll serve her with a divorce petition on Saturday morning at the hotel. I'll expand the text a bit, but we'll serve it on her in her office, preferably in Clark's presence. What do you say? It'll work. It'll be the final proof that I'll do it. She said, Clark's picking her up at lunch. I think you should hand it to her around 11 o'clock. Whether he's there or not, her employer will know what's going on. He's old-fashioned and he won't like what she's doing, but what will upset him the most is if a bailiff shows up at the office and makes a scene. About an hour later, the lawyer sent me a draft of the letter. It was perfect for the circumstances. It outlined everything we knew and made it clear that she would be served on Saturday morning. I texted back, confirming that I was happy with the project, checked the tablet, but there were no further messages between Ruby and Clark, and I headed to bed. I tried the bedroom door, expecting it to be locked, but I was surprised to find that it wasn't. I walked in and saw Ruby lying in bed, clearly hoping I would be romanticized. I noticed her packed bag leaning against the wall on her side of the bed and looked at her. I see you've made your decision. A quick love affair with Clark was more important than our marriage. I turned and walked out of the room, heading for the guest room, and I heard her get out of bed and scream, Lou, stop! It's not like that. Come back and let me show you how much your love means to me. Please. I didn't say anything back, just lay on the bed with my clothes on. The letters were written in a third person, not in reality, but the bag packed and ready for another man was real, evoked emotion, and was like stabbing my heart. I wasn't prepared for the grief and sense of loss, and cried most of the night. The next morning, I heard Ruby coming down the stairs. I went into our bedroom to shower and get fresh clothes and noticed that my bag wasn't there, wondered if she had carried it downstairs, unpacked it, and put it away. As I stepped out of the shower, I smelled coffee and bacon. I guess the bag was downstairs. I walked into the kitchen and looked at her. She was looking at me, biting her lower lip. My first thought was, come on. She's nervous. No need to hold back. I assume this feast is an attempt to show me how great a wife you would be if you could sleep with another man. It won't work. If you do this, it's over between us. As we talked, I decided to come clean. The lawyer and I have arranged for you to be served with divorce papers tomorrow morning at breakfast. I assure you, once served, I will not withdraw them. There will be no forgiveness. If you come home tonight, we'll start counseling to figure out how to rebuild trust and make sure this doesn't happen again. If you leave with him, don't come back. You won't be welcome here. I turned to leave. She said, please stay for breakfast. We need to talk about this. I turned back to her and replied, we've already talked. Your bag suggests that you only want to convince me, not talk. I'm not having breakfast here. Time to start learning how to take care of yourself if you're going to go for it. I assume the bag is already in your car. She turned her back. I guess I'm right. I walked out of the house in silence. At least she realized the abyss she was looking into. When I got to the office, Kathy took one look at me and said, "You look like shit." I smiled. "And you look as sexy as ever. Before you ask, I have no idea how it went. When I offered her plan B, she lost her temper. She wanted to fire you and even said, 'Over my dead body only.' And then she took action on her own. This morning, she brought her weekend bag with her. She's getting a letter from me at 11 a.m. this morning with an injunction. Let's see if that will shake her up." While I was talking, Kathy was making coffee. She handed me a cup and answered, "I hope she comes to her senses. She can't be stupid enough to think it's okay for her, but not okay for you." I smiled sadly and sat down at my desk. This day had not been productive. Just after 11, my cell phone rang. It was Ruby. I could barely make out her words through my tears. "Are you serious? Are you really going to divorce me?" Obviously, she had convinced herself that I wouldn't. I simply replied, "I wouldn't hesitate if you cheated on me. Cheating is a deal breaker. We both know that. You will divorce me if I cheat on you, won't you?" The answer was so quiet I barely heard it, but there was a definite yes in it. She coughed. "Are you coming home now to talk?" "I'll be there in 20 minutes, was all I said as I hung up the phone. I got home first and put the coffee on. The smell of the bacon she'd made that morning was still in the air, so I opened the kitchen windows before I sat down at the table. She showed up at the house 10 minutes after I did. I was already pouring everyone's coffee when she appeared in the doorway. She had an envelope from her lawyer in one hand and a weekend bag hanging over her shoulder. She dropped the bag by the door and froze. I think she wanted to rush over to me for a hug, but didn't know if I would let her. I carried the coffee to the table and sat down, indicating for her to sit down. My first words were a question. "So, are you going to the hotel or not?" "How could you even ask that after you sent this? Of course I'm not going. I love you. I want to be with you. I know you'd never let that happen, so that's off the table. Now, do we have to fix our marriage, or will I still get served?" she asked, sitting down across from me and resting her chin on my chest. I looked at her and leaned across the table and lifted her chin so that she was looking at me. I said, "You'll only get served if you're in a hotel. No service. But our marriage has suffered a lot. So here's what's going to happen. First, you're going to call Clark in front of me. I want to hear you tell him it's off. Then you're going to disconnect and delete the personal email that you have for him. Then you're going to call your boss, tell him what Clark is doing, and ask that he not be allowed in your office anymore. After that, we'll make an appointment for counseling. We need to figure out why you fell for it, why you think I'll go along with it, and how we can rebuild trust." As soon as I finished talking, her phone rang. It was Clark. She put it on speaker, and I heard him ask, "Where are you, Ruby?" "I'm at the rec room waiting for you, and I can't wait." She took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. "Alistair, I'm at home with Lou. He's done something that has shaken me to the core, and if I go with you, my marriage will be ruined, and you, I'm sorry to say, are not worth it. So I'm not going." His rage was off the charts. "You're a stupid fool. You know how much time, effort, and money I've put into you, and now you walk away when a weakling acts like an abused child. You're just stupid." With those words, he hung up the phone. For the first time, Ruby saw what he was, a slime. Deactivating and deleting the mailbox was harder than expected, but within an hour it was done. By the time we were done, her boss, along with the hiring manager, was at our door. The hiring manager, Mervyn Woods, started by saying, "Ruby, we are aware of what happened today. To say we're not happy is an understatement, but we're here to give you a chance to keep your job. Now tell us what happened." She picked up a napkin and blotted her eye before she began. "As you know, about 3 months ago, our account was taken over by a new AM Metals sales agent, Alistair Clark. I was previously in charge of the account, and he came to see me almost every day. I didn't realize it at first, but he started flirting with me, complimenting my dress, my hair, and even my smile. Soon, he started talking about how beautiful my butt was and how perfect my breasts were. I bought into it and soon started wearing more provocative clothes. He sent flowers and candy and then invited me to dinner. In my own foolishness, I went and he started asking me personal questions about my life, my husband, and eventually my sex life. Soon he began to speak disparagingly of my husband, saying he was not worthy of me. It was like drop by drop, and he was wearing me down. Then he asked me to go with him for the weekend. Luckily, Lou was on the lookout. He handed me a letter telling me he was divorcing me, and I came to my senses. I told Alistair I wasn't going, and that my husband and I were working on a plan to save our marriage. Was going to call you and make a formal complaint. So, glad you're here. Woods looked at the CEO, who only nodded. Then he spoke. Well, Ruby, we're glad you're willing to be honest. Yes, it was a very big mistake, and you're lucky you still have a job. We have had some quality issues with AM Metals, so we are closing his account. Therefore, Mr. Clark will be removed from the office permanently. So we will not take any further action against you, but if you ever do anything like this again, you will be out. Is that understood? Ruby nodded meekly. Yes, they said goodbye to us and left. After they left, we had lunch, and then set about finding a counselor. It was quite easy to find one. We called and made an appointment. She wanted to see us the next day, Saturday. The time was set. We sat and looked at each other. After about 10 seconds, I walked over to Ruby, took her hand and dragged her to bed. We literally made love for a good 20 minutes. Then we went to bed, and I fell asleep with my head on her chest. I woke up around 5 o'clock and we made slow, sweet love, probably for the first time since she'd met Clark. Counseling was going well. Ruby realized that Clark was playing on her fear that our lives would become routine, and realized that she had divulged to him all the information he was using to further his plan. I realized that it was just a game to him, and I began to appreciate how good our life together was. We don't need anyone to teach us anything. Counseling lasted 3 months. 4 years later, we are still very happy, and Ruby is pregnant with our firstborn. As for Mr. Clark, he was at our local mall and had a very unfortunate fall while walking down the stairs to the parking lot. No one knows how it happened, but there were at least 5 husbands at the mall that day who didn't like him. We were all wearing the same black clothes with baseball caps, so no one could tell us apart. We all went into the coffee shop, then one of us got up, came back. After getting up, another came back, and so on. No one would be able to tell who was sitting at the table and who wasn't. The police tried to crack us up, but no one gave anyone away. I'm sure it was one of us, I swear. The end.